Welcome to A Taste of the Beach. Once a radio favorite, now reborn as a podcast. I'm Dan Lipton. My company's Beach Cities Media, and I'm super excited that we've reborn this show as a tandem. My co-host here, Raad, Ghantous, a good, tremendous friend, and we just got so excited talking about doing this together. And welcome, my friend.
Thank you, Dan. I'm thrilled to be here. Super excited that we're bringing this back. For people that don't have a little bit of background on this, we toyed with this a little bit. We had a couple of episodes that we did a couple of years ago, and just to give a little bit of history and pedigree to this show, Dan had been doing this show for a while as a radio show out of Cal State Long Beach, Go Beach. And there'll be a lot of beach stuff in this, right?
Sure.
Go Beach. And he was doing it, and then he kind of, for personal reasons, things that happened, the change of life kind of stuff, he kind of parked it aside. And I remember meeting Dan, and he was talking about something else, and I had just started doing my Raad Life show at the time. God, that must be like almost 10 years ago, 8 years ago that we've been friends. And he basically was telling me about this, and I was super excited about this medium, which was a new thing for me. I tend to get excited about new things. And I said to him, well, wait a minute, hold on a second. Wait, what's it called? He says, Taste of the Beach. Taste of the Beach? I thought the Raad Life was a good name for a show. The Taste of the Beach, come on, right? I said, you got to let me basically try to bring this back. And I said, I have this production company. I didn't have a production company. So I had a production company called Golden Steel Productions. And we helped a lot of people during COVID, actually, to launch a bunch of shows. I remember sending out like green screens and mics to people in Australia because they wanted to try to do a podcast. But anyway, so we brought back the show.
Right.
And we did that show. There was a couple of episodes that we did that show, and we met at a couple of locations, some of the restaurants. Mm-hmm. And the tie-in with Dan's thing is he's always had this sort of like print media element of his media company. And so it was people that were actually advertisers, or people that he knew, or people that had activities, or like in the case of Long Beach, for example, although it's not limited to Long Beach now anymore as under Beach Cities Media. But, the Grand Prix that was happening, activities at the Pike, and so forth. And that's sort of the pedigree and the history of the show. And we had fun doing it. And then COVID hit and a bunch of other stuff. And here we are bringing it back. And we're bringing it back because, for those who don't know, so I'm a designer by trade, an interior designer by trade, commercial, hospitality, restaurant, food and beverage, ties in with sort of the coverage that Dan has with his media, right? And it's all about the experience for me. So I'm a designer, I'm an experience maker, and now podcast co-host with Dan Lipton, who's a buddy, and we have a good rapport, and we thought, why not? Let's have fun doing this, right?
Absolutely.
And let's highlight and showcase some people. It's always been about spotlighting what makes coastal California, at least, vibrant. And there's always something going on, whether it's food and beverage, whether it's activities, whether it's, philanthropy. There's all that stuff that happens within that 10 miles from the ocean.
Exactly.
Everywhere from Santa Barbara to San Diego. So I'm here excited to help shape the next chapter alongside you, Dan.
Yeah, I'm super excited about what we're going to do together. The background of, again, as you said, in my company, the Showcase of Beach Cities Media was publishing a travel and entertainment magazine that, for the most part in print, would connect the tourist with the local economy.
Right.
And, Long Beach focused, I guess, because I lived in Long Beach for 25 years, raised my children there. My granddaughters play water polo at Wilson High School in Long Beach. And it's a great city. A lot of people drive through it on the 405 from LA to Orange County and back. But it's a great place to live. And had this opportunity, 13 years ago, coming out of the downturn in the economy to start a business and connect travelers, initially travelers, because we're a hotel distributed publication,
Right.
to the best places to dine, shop, play, and stay.
Right. And if anybody has been at the at a hotel, let's say in the last 20 years, because things have changed as far as that kind of stuff in terms of delivery of media information and so forth. Everybody gets it on their phones now. But you've come across these magazines. You've come across this kind of magazine that highlights the local happenings. It tends to be, I mean, how was it quarterly? How often?
Quarterly.
Yeah. So it captures the seasonal changes, offerings, programming, etc., to help that guest that's maybe not familiar with the area to basically get familiar with some of the resources that are available. Right.
A lot of travelers like to dine and participate as locals when they're on the road. They don't want to go to chains. They want to go where locals go.
Well, it goes back to what we were talking about the experience. It's like you're in a space, you're experiencing the space, the environment that the thing is in. A lot of hotels, from my design perspective, a lot of hotels a while ago, we were talking about a few decades ago, they just basically embraced the local flavor as part of their offering. Even if it's a chain, it tends to basically try to amplify the local flavor. So I think... And you've been, I mean, you have a long history now of doing this. Like how long, you said the downturn, so 2008?
I launched my first issue in Q1 of 2013.
Okay. So it's been like 12 years. Mm-hmm. Right. So you're very, very familiar in the space, and you continue to innovate with this new, product under Beach Cities Media.
Right. So super excited to rebrand after 12 years with my next issue in July.
That's the launch for the Beach City Media? Okay.
So, came up with a whole new look to the magazine. I kind of tested it with, my hoteliers and my advertising partners and friends.
Yeah.
There was unanimous support, not only in doing it, but a particular look and feel. And along with that, a new website that is under construction that will offer some additional services that I didn't have before, in conjunction with working with you and working with others to provide more resources. But also coming out of or during the pandemic, we shifted a little bit because tourism was down, obviously.
Yeah, the whole industry has changed.
Right.
In nature.
We used to be in every hotel room. And then, if you remember, we weren't allowed to touch anything during the pandemic.
Let alone a magazine.
Right.
That wasn't sleeved and sealed and, yeah.
So they were all pulled out of the rooms. We come out of the pandemic. I have about, 75% of my clients that said, we want to start up with you again. And
that says a lot about you.
Some went out of business. Some just
sadly
sat on the sidelines.
Yeah.
We always based the success of our advertising model on the number of people in the rooms, right? Well, occupancy rates in SoCal went from 90 to 95% down to 25, 30%. And I really needed a better story to tell my advertisers. And so found out about this company that had 180 million double opt-in email addresses, meaning valid email addresses where people said, you may contact me, send me information. Mm-hmm. And we could segment that any way that we wanted to. Incredible amounts of data to look at. And I turned out to be my own first customer.
Okay.
I sent the magazine out digitally to the exact target audience locally, because locals were going out, they were picking up and getting deliveries of food during that time. They didn't need to be in the hotels. And when they had seen my magazine, they go, wow, I love this, but I don't know how to get it. I don't stay in
hotels.
Local hotels.
Right.
So I sent it to them via email, and we were getting high open rates and high click-through rates. And then that became a new medium for me to share what we do with so many more people. My clients love it. They actually co-advertise in the emails. Mm-hmm. So they're in the magazine, but they're also putting ads in the emails.
Well, these days you have to be a lot more sophisticated in how you're getting the stuff out.
Yeah, for sure.
And more targeted in terms of sort of that ROI, return on investment. And we're talking from a business perspective. Also, I think to say that a magazine or a channel of content delivery is limited to food and beverage or hotels experience stay misses the point, because it's more than palm trees and piers, right? It's, when you talk about coastal or beaches, right? It's people, ideas, culture, flavor. The Taste of the Beach now is part of Golden Seal production family, but we're basically, because it leans into thoughtful, energizing conversations that also, if you will, are more about a reflection of the soul of beach living.
Absolutely. The words that came to my mind in preparing for this venture was from hospitality to humanity and everything in between.
I really like that.
There are so many people that are making a difference here in California, and even if we just stick to coastal California to stay with our beach theme.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people that I know that I've met through you, and people that I've met, through business, that whether it's through philanthropy or their business, are making a difference. And we want to talk to those people and share their stories. I always find just in conversation with people, when you ask them, like, how did you get started doing what you're doing, it's not just a trite opening question. It's amazing what you learn from others, because we deal as entrepreneurs, we deal often with a lot of other entrepreneurs, and they have great stories to tell, and they're supporting the economy. I don't need to tell our listeners how important entrepreneurship and small business is to our economy. I deal with it every day, being on the board of the Long Beach Chamber of Commerce and on the board of the Small Business Council. Our economy is propped up by people who open restaurants and open art galleries and start nonprofits. And, our tagline, we promote the best places to dine, shop, play, and stay, but there's also a whole lot more, in that.
It again, you and I have known each other for almost a decade. We there was a world before COVID, there's a world after COVID. I think what's interesting is that these days there's a hunger that goes beyond the food on the plate. There's a hunger for genuine, soul satiating experience.
Experience is the right word.
Right. And it's not necessarily in terms of the physical environment, not to poo-poo what I do for, like on the design side, but it's not just about the physical environment. It's about the connecting with people. It's about authenticity in your connection. It's about owning your truth when you're basically engaging with people. And I think we're an aging population. I mean, let's just face it, right? We're aging population. I think I saw something a while ago that said, like, by 2050, you're going to have more people over the age of 60 than you will have under the age of 18.
Right. Well, the baby boomer generation, and I was born near the end of that time frame, right? We're all retiring out soon or not.
I don't think that generation is retiring. I think for a number of reasons, and we'll delve into something a little bit in a minute here about this. But I think I'm on the first front end of the Gen X. You're on the tail end of baby boomers.
Correct.
I think if you're anywhere between the range of, on the younger side, let's just say between 45 to 70, and you're young at heart, and you're basically comfortable in your own skin, and you're not really out there to try to prove anything for anybody, or trying to basically meet some expectations that society puts on you or your circle of influence puts on you. You're looking for that genuinely satisfying life and all the flavors that come with it. And so when you say taste of the beach, it's a taste for life that goes from everything from culinary to actually experience. And it's also that conversations, like if somebody's sitting at a cafe near the water by the beach, whether it's Newport or Wilmington or down in Encinitas, or on the way up to Santa Barbara or near Hertz Castle or whatever. And I'm just using California references because honestly, as long as there's a body of water, it could be a lake, it could be Dubai, it could be anywhere, right?
Sure.
I mean, hey, you might get a taste of the beach from Dubai. You might actually get a taste of the beach from I don't know, South Africa or something at some point, right? The medium and the ability to basically convey that kind of stuff, and it's value content and sharing those people's stories. That's fishermen, that's third generation fishermen, that's basically on the Baja Peninsula.
I'll give you a couple of perfect examples, and we're not going to be shy to name drop in here, businesses and things that we find that we.
I don't think I've ever found you to be shy.
Yeah, no.
And I'm very humble, as you.
Yeah. So, on my business card, I call myself CFO, Chief Foodie Officer.
Yeah.
Okay, to have some fun. But what I realize, and speaking exactly to your point, we can go out and sit down in a restaurant and order food, and it comes out and it looks beautiful and it tastes great. And what I've come to really enjoy, this past Friday night, my wife and I went and took a cooking class.
Yeah, you told me.
Right at prep cooking classes in Seal Beach, a beautiful facility with a wine bar, and they sell accessories. And my wife went to town in their little shop and bought stuff for the kitchen. But it was two different types of gnocchi that we made from scratch.
Where is it? You didn't bring me any.
Yeah, I know, right? Because I ate it. But so much more appreciation now for that food, because now I know what it takes to make it, right? And we go and we sit down in a restaurant and it comes, but that preparation, that experience of doing it. And so now, when we travel, we'll try to do a cooking class wherever we go, because we enjoy it. But
that's a really great way to share something with your partner. That's awesome.
Sure, and the appreciation, I'm not a huge beer drinker, but I brew beer, right? I love to go through the process of, and again, that appreciation of how things are made and who does it, right? And who pours their life and soul into, a brewery we have in the magazine, or, and so we want to share, those stories and these people that have, big hearts and take a big leap in their life, to do what they do. And I think I think people will like to hear about it.
Well, you raise an interesting point, because it's an appreciation of what the final output is, but through the lens of what it takes to get there, and through the lens of the actual human person that's delivering it, right? I mean, it's the closest I can think of is something that's handmade, for example. There's a layer to that beyond the fact that it's just higher value or more costly, or what have you, as far as dollars and cents. But the fact that there's a story, and there's a little bit of an overuse of that term these days, from my perspective, where people talk about it's all about storytelling. Everybody wants to be talking about storytelling. It's all about storytelling, and then yet the storytelling is basically limited to what I can get in 42 characters or less, and what I could do in less than 30 seconds on Instagram. Okay, that's not a story. That's not even if the layers of that story are concise, they're efficient, they're for quick and easy digestion, but that's not a story. That's what we used to refer to back in the day, when we basically didn't want to read a English literature novel, and you went and picked up the Cliff Notes. Yeah, that's the Cliff Notes.
Or depending on what social media platform you're on, often it's just killing time and trying to get a little laugh,
right,
or something.
Getting that dopamine hit, and that sort of immediate reaction. But story, that person who made the food. I'm not saying you got to go back all the way to what was their day like in terms of commuting to the restaurant, or what personal issues do they have. Although when you get hit with COVID, where it impacts not only the restaurant business, but it impacts the people that work in the restaurant business, when you have the fires in LA that happen, which is within our territory. I mean, this is like 10 miles from the beach. You have the fires in LA and the restaurants that closed down and burned down, but there's all the people whose livelihoods was involved. Like, you can't disassociate the experience from those who are involved in delivering it for you. You can. I mean, there are people that do that there's a compartmentalization of this and that. But for me, the full flavor of something is when you basically allow yourself to expand your taste buds, if you will, to include those things. It makes the satisfaction less bland, I guess is a way to put it.
Sure. And a
little bit more seasoned.
And a greater appreciation. You know, I have a restaurant client in downtown Long Beach, Lopra.
Yes, it's been around for a long time.
Been around over 30 years, same owner. So during the pandemic...
By the way, that was one of the first restaurants from my design perspective. It was one of the first restaurants that reactivated a space that was never a restaurant and turned it into an experiential offering. And if you haven't been to Lopra, I'm not going to tell you what it's all about. You go check it out. But it's been around for...
over 30 years.
Yeah.
Okay. Same chef from the beginning. I mean, this is unheard of.
It is absolutely unheard of in the industry.
Yeah, Chef Walter. The staff has been there a long, long time. They're not just a client to me. They're like family to me. I held my premiere issue party in their restaurant. We celebrated family events. My granddaughters, I got them to work in the kitchen, and I bought them chef coats, and they served us dinner. And we've gone there. You know, we went there after my first wife passed away and had a family dinner, and, you know, got hugged up by the staff. I mean, you know, so this is personal to me.
Yeah.
But I'm bringing it up to say that, you know, simultaneously with the pandemic, when they were closed and then starting to reopen, and then the George Floyd riots happened, and they were looted in front of police standing outside, and they took everything out of the restaurant, everything that wasn't nailed down and was nailed down, and it took a year and a half to reopen. He could have closed, right? He'd been doing this for over 25 years.
Mm-hmm. And I remember there was a deliberation, I think, of him doing that.
Yeah, but he was committed to his staff and giving them back a place to work. He continued to figure out a way to pay them, and when he reopened, it was as beautiful or more beautiful than ever. And you know, these types of stories, you know, need to be heard and told and applauded.
Well, and you can walk into that restaurant and not know that, and be totally fine and enjoy your meal and your experience. But if somebody is actually at least providing that out there as another layer to your dining experience, if you're so inclined, I think it just adds to the worth of that experience and that evening. I think, like I said, it resonates with certain people, maybe not all. I mean, you know, everybody's got their own kind of like guiding light of how they experience life. But it is an interesting and valuable layer that you're providing, and I think with this new relaunch, or not relaunch, it's actually a new a pivot and a birth. Like you're doing a 2.0 on the media approach, right?
Sure.
Is it reminds me kind of with what I'm teasing. No, I'm not going to tease it, but where I'm basically at, because I'm at the age of 60. I'm looking at plenty of time ahead of me, even if I measure it by you know, when my father passed away, for example. And when are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Okay, I'm gonna go back, Tomas. Okay, so you know, the just benchmarking it against when my father passed away. All right, there's a lot of time. There's a lot of time ahead where you have an opportunity to re-engage, maybe with a different, in a different way, but maybe go back and reconnect with your true driving purpose. Like what are your values? What's your driving purpose? And then you now have an opportunity to maybe align it again, but with more intent and clarity that you did before, because you kind of was just going through the motions and taking on the things, and you're getting your education, then you're starting the business, or you're working for somebody else, and then you're starting the business, and you're kind of in the doing.
Right.
But you have an ability now to be more intentional in how you're doing it, and to where it reflects you. And I'm going through that myself right now, and I'm not going to say anything more, but there will be more that will be coming in the next few months, which basically speaks to that.
Sure. And it's not just how, it's with whom.
It's true. I think that's also part of what comes out of the experience of getting to where you're at. You have, I think, a more less rigid black and whites. You have certain things that are not negotiable,
Right.
because they're to your true self. But you, I think, also have a little bit more latitude, and you have a little bit more empathy. And so, like we were saying before, everybody's got a story. There's a layer to everything. That person making the dough for the gnocchi, the person who is making the sauce, they all have a contribution. Everybody has something to contribute to this story, right? But you also have certain clarity after going through a certain, let's say, 2/3 of your life, that makes you a little bit more skilled at deciding what you want and owning that space and inviting people to be part of it. And I'm just going to leave it at that, because I don't really want to take away from the fact that we're launching this show. But I think it's interesting because you and I, even though we technically may be generationally different, Boomer and X, the mindset that we have, both as entrepreneurs, business owners, people that have been doing this, 15 to 20 years, we have we're at not a crossroad. I don't really want to look at it as a crossroad. We're at an inflection point. And it's an exciting time if you really embrace it. And you're embracing it. You're embracing it with Beach City Media. You're embracing it, the show. I don't know if you're really embracing it or you just want the company, but by inviting me to be a co-host on this, right? Which I'm thrilled to do. I mean, this pushes me out of my comfort level with the Raad Life show only, but it also aligns with my 20 plus years in his hospitality as a provider from the design side. My love for food, my love for people's stories. I one of the best things somebody told me one time, and it was the best compliment anybody could actually give me at that time, was, you genuinely like people, Raad.
Yes. We have that in common.
And we have that in common.
There's no
and so
question.
bringing people's stories to people as that storyteller, and in a format that is sort of our choosing in a way, and you control the distribution channel a little bit, and you do it from a position of humility but also empowerment. That's an awesome magic spot.
Yeah, and I think one of the words I like to use is being selective. Okay, as a publisher of a magazine, the people that are in here, they're not just because they want to advertise. I vet everything in here, and I only want to share places that kind of inspire me, right? I think I'll be 65 in June. I'm more energized now with some of these new things that I'm doing than I have been in years. And I think, maybe a life lesson is, recreate yourself every once in a while, because it gives you excitement and energy.
Because we're kind of going through the same thing. You've been, maybe a little bit more seasoned elder. And I use that, right? But you're a friend, so I can call you that. But I got to tell you, I don't know that it's reinventing yourself, because I think the true source is the same. And I think sometimes, like when I'm going through this, and I face the possibility of just, none of this stuff is working. Let's just scrape it all. We'll start with a blank slate, right? From a practical perspective, it doesn't make any sense because you have invested time, you have resources, you have the benefits of your experience and your effort, right? So you got to look at it and say, well, is there assets here? I mean, why starting from scratch has a attractiveness to it, but you got to still know what it is from scratch that you're starting.
Sure.
Right? And clarity. And if you do that, have at it, man. But usually what I find is that people are not reinventing themselves. What they're doing is they're refining themselves.
That's well put.
Right? And I think, and you know me, I've said this multiple times, language and words mean something.
Absolutely.
People throw around words these days for impact, for hashtags, whatever, but what you say carries weight. And maybe it's because I, as a primary, like English was a second language for me, although I can never remember not speaking both Arabic and English at the same time. But I have an appreciation for the written word that if you actually embrace it, can be an incredible communication tool for you to express not only what you are basically putting on paper, but what is actually happening inside you.
No doubt about it.
Right? Mm-hmm. So I don't think it's reinvention. I think it's I don't think it's reinvention. I think it's refinement.
Yeah. I agree.
But with that meaning that you don't lose the passion. In fact, if anything, like you're saying, you're very excited about this right now. Like, it's the passion, the positivity, the sense of, I can really get behind this thing. This is really energizing me. I can feel like I'm contributing. There's a legacy here that I could basically leave behind, right? That's refinement. It's not, I'm resting on my laurels, I'm on the plateau, I'm refining, but just kind of like to close up the chapter. No.
Sure. I mean, there are several things in life that get me, excited. I love sports and wine and food and friends.
Yeah.
And, I use that term selective. I've just chosen to try to get closer to a smaller group of people, as I... you only have a certain amount of time in the day, right? I don't just want to go places to be in a crowd. I'd rather be in a small group of people and really enjoy each other. And I kind of find that I've gravitated to, some friends that I've had. I got a buddy on the East Coast I've known since the third grade, and now we're closer than ever. And one of my best friends who lives in Texas that I've known for over 20 years. I want to seek out and really, spend time with them and people like yourself and really just, close in on the things that are important.
Well, so I because if anybody's been watching us, like this conversation is a lot deeper than we're the show and beach focus, but it is part of life. I mean, you live where you live, and we just happen to live within 10 miles from the beach, and so this is part of our reality. This is what people walking the beach trail in San Clemente may be talking to one another about. This may be friends that are meeting for the first time, or they've known each other since high school, that are basically meeting next to the the boardwalk or the jetty now, Belmont Shores, for example, in Newport Beach, or maybe at the Redondo Beach pier, right? And walking on that old pier with a cup of coffee, right? This is part of beach cities. This is part of beach life. But I want to bring it back because I don't want to have people basically go, oh my God, this is like too heavy on the first show, right? We promise we'll spread it out. But this is going to be part of the flavor, right? Let's talk about what's ahead, like events, energy, and SoCal, because that was always part of what when we brought it back the first time, we would talk about some of that stuff. So what's some of the stuff on your radar?
Well,
that people should be aware of or look out for?
There's obviously some big events that are coming. SoCal, because of our great weather and infrastructure and probably the entertainment industry, draw big events here. And we have next year, we have the World Cup, FIFA World Cup coming.
Get your tickets; they're out.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's Canada, U.S., and Mexico hosting, which I think is great.
Yeah.
the passion for soccer. Americans will say we're the only country that doesn't get soccer, and that may be the case, but there's a lot of people, and SoFi will host, and we don't want to forget the big events that are coming. Obviously in 2028 we have the Olympics.
Yeah.
The Summer Olympics.
Which, by the way,
and
where was the handoff? Oh yeah, I remember. Snoop Dogg on the beach.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff happening on the beach.
Right. So it'll be, it was Paris, and now it's going to be Los Angeles, and Long Beach. Obviously that we've mentioned is going to host 11 or 12 events, and so
well, and then you have the Olympics and the Paralympics in 2028,
right?
And the infrastructure is only getting bigger. Like the facilities, the infrastructure to provide that. I know even, beyond just like literally beach cities like Long Beach or what have you, or Newport, but in places like Costa Mesa, there's places like, I think there was a conversation at one point about possibly some diving stuff in the aquatic centers there's in Mission Viejo. Like, all of these people are getting engaged, and the infrastructure is increasing. And what usually happens with the Olympics, I remember when the Olympics were in Atlanta, I went, right? The infrastructure gets built up to meet the need.
For sure.
And we live in an environment that is amazing in terms of weather and usability for outdoors. So then we now have the benefit of those facilities. And for those people who are too young to remember or whatever, it's not the first time the Olympics has been in Los Angeles.
I remember well, 84.
Yeah.
I remember we were all warned, stay off the roads because it's going to be crazy, and everybody stayed off the roads. So it was the best time.
It was the best time to drive. That and COVID, best time to drive in Southern California. You actually saw the mountains. You actually, it wasn't that bad. Yeah. What about beyond the sports, right? Is it, like, in terms of the region's infrastructure for tourism and stuff like that, right? Because we talked about how things changed, like the business traveler business that was a lot of the bread and butter for a lot of hotels, that's changed. A lot of places are adapting. I think from my perspective, I see them adapting, but not really letting go of what they've done before. And so it's a slow process. But what do you see in that capacity? Like, what is some of the, obviously these events will ripple through everything, right? I mean, it's going to cause that side of the industry or that sector to basically have to step up and meet the demand, right? And Orange County, and I mean, not Orange County, Southern California is a widespread thing. So then the transportation is going to be a situation. Other things are going to be needed, right?
So you have things like, the build out, as much as we all kind of detest going to LAX, they're building and going to be completing their monorail up there. That's going to help get people in and out. That leading up to the Olympics, of course.
Well, and it puts the pressure on getting it done, right? Because there's a date that needs to be done, or you're going to have a hell of a mess on your hands.
The success of our economy is not just based on how much money we spend out locally. Internationally, there's a huge effort to draw people from Asia and Australia and England, and we'll keep politics out of it. Things maybe in the immediacy seem a little bit dicey, but our well-oiled machine works best when people are coming from other regions and other parts of the country to experience SoCal.
And SoCal is actually very diverse. Like, if you really just scratch underneath the surface for a minute, you'll realize how many people are actually already here from Australia, from New Zealand, from Europe. And it's not just limited to Los Angeles. I live in San Clemente. It's a world-class surf. In fact, shout out to San Clemente. Olympic surfing is going to happen in Trestles. I mean, this is what people would basically go, just like you were saying, they would drive right through Long Beach. They would drive right by San Clemente, and like, didn't know what the hell, did I trip over a town? Was there a bump in the road there on the way to Pendleton and San Diego? And I think it's interesting because we are so diverse as a region. We have all these layers, and people sometimes, like I said, with use a metaphor from food or a symbolism of food. If all you eat is a cheeseburger, and you're satisfied with it, but you don't allow yourself, for example, to have a poke bowl, then you don't realize that it's there. You don't realize that you could go get fresh food and flounder from a ranch market. That you can get falafel from an Arabic store. You can get shawarma and gyros, and in the course of doing that, experience both the Middle Eastern way of serving it and the Greek way of serving it.
Sure.
Right. And so we have all that.
Or that some cities in town have actual farms that provide produce for restaurants.
Right.
They're not coming all from the Central Valley.
No, and it doesn't have to be like fine dining either. Like I know, again, reference to San Clemente, there's a place called Pedro's Tacos. Pedro's Tacos is like the mother's milk for everybody who's ever grown and raised in San Clemente, and it's part of that culture, part of the experience. You go to San Clemente and you don't know that there's something like through a magazine that says, you want to try this because here's the story. And they're housed in a couple of buildings in town, and one of the buildings happens to be a mid-century modern architect's first building that he ever designed, that used to be a real estate office, and now it's Pedro's Tacos. And that architect is famous architect that is in Palm Springs, and that architect basically, when he designed that, he designed it for his wife's family who was in real estate when he was in the Marine Corps in Pendleton. I mean, talk about how that potato taco just took on a totally different flavor.
And we want to share those stories.
Right.
I mean, if I told you that arguably the best barbecue in Southern California was in San Juan Capistrano, there's a lot of people in SoCal that don't get out of their own bubble, and it's not it's not meant in a derogatory way, because everything that we kind of need
is conveniently
within 10 minutes.
Right, and then you can get on your phone and actually do it now on like an Instacart or a DoorDash or whatever. Yeah, you're right.
But to stand in line at Heritage in San Juan Capistrano and get some of the most amazing barbecue you'll ever taste anywhere, and I'm even talking to our friends in Texas. Well,
I think Dan just threw the gauntlet down, challenging Texas barbecue with Southern California barbecue. We might actually happen to have a special show.
I'll bring back. I don't know if I'll bring back the ribs, but I'll bring back the story, because I'm going to Texas to surprise my grandchildren there on May 8th, over Mother's Day weekend.
Yeah, nice.
And the first thing I'm doing is I'm having lunch with my graphic designer for my magazine. She lives in Texas. I'm going to take her out, and I said, would you please pick the best barbecue place around you? And I actually had been there before. It's called Hard 8 Barbecue. I can't wait. When you get out and explore and try different things, sometimes the bar raises.
So here's a thought. Mm-hmm. Okay. Here's a thought. When you're there, you need to figure out how we can basically do not East Coast, West Coast, but like a cross-country competition, whether it's a shared recipes with, summer's coming, or maybe it's next year. But here's where, like, the show, Taste of the Beach, we'll just say that the one in Texas is near a body of water, and then it'll meet the requirements, right? But what we did, like a side by side, because that's kind of exciting. Like that would be exciting for me if I'm going to barbecue and I'm going to try this, right? I'm not going to necessarily pick a favorite, but the fact that there may be a medium that's daring to basically go there with this, like that's exciting. That makes for a fun little rivalry, healthy rivalry kind of thing, a little exposure. And I'll tell you right now, neither side is going to basically admit that the other one basically is right.
No way.
But that's the fun. That's the fun of it.
But also, I just think it speaks to one of the things that we want to, amplify is, someone who maybe have been raised somewhere else, who came to SoCal, bringing their recipes,
their culture, their flavor.
You find that in
Their
locally
identity,
owned businesses.
You do, right.
Not so much in chains at all. And again, the chains serve a purpose, and there's some very, very well operated ones, as we know, ones that started right here in Southern California, growing like weeds, but because they're doing it right. But we want to bring attention to some of those people out there that stories are not heard as often.
Well, and you have like sort of that mom and pop owner operator one location. You have ones that are maybe basically had a success in a multi-generational format. They now have a couple of other locations that are slightly different of a thing, but there's a philosophy, there's a scalability, right? So it all of that is all different flavors to be bringing. So we will be tracking not just the events like we were talking about, right? But or just the restaurants, but the entrepreneurs, the chefs, the architects, the community leaders who are building all of this on a daily basis. They wake up in the morning and they engage in this. And that's what I think we would like to make sure we cover on the show, and I'm sure with the magazine. So as we wrap up here, okay, I think this was an incredible kickoff, by the way.
Me too.
And if we overindulged ourselves in terms of the depth of conversation, blame that on the fact that we're friends and we're comfortable with it, and we promise we'll be a little bit more receptive and kind of bring you guys along a little slower. But we're excited about this, you can tell, and it's not a new thing or a reinvention. It's a refinement of what's there, the taste of the beach, a refinement of Dan's media, heritage and involvement in that industry, and we'll have amazing guests lined out,
and we'll be taking this on the road as well.
And that's the other thing. We're in studio, and there will be some stuff that'll be in studio, but there will be stuff that will be on site, because we feel, again, that's going to be part of the experience. That's going to be taking you as close to that experience if you're not there in person to basically enjoy it. So we will be hitting the road. We'll be doing this for whether it's hospitality, hotel product, or locations, destinations, restaurants, events, things that are around tourism. It could be highlighting certain people that have been very instrumental in the development of this, from Chamber of Commerce or whatever. So we're going to be taking it on the road. What else do you want to leave people with as we wrap up here, Dan?
Would love, if you want to kind of follow along with us and our story, Beach Cities Mag on Facebook and Instagram is a great place to kind of start. I'll hold my website off a little bit until it's fully completed.
Well, we want people to come back and basically get the latest and greatest too. So the reason we're launching the show here now before maybe the magazine comes out is because we want to basically provide an ability for people to find us what's going on, what's the next thing, what's happening, what's the website, and to possibly subscribe, leave a review. I mean, this is not necessarily building the plane while we're flying it, but it's actually because there's the history and the heritage, but it's actually just providing a point of contact with everybody, because we know a lot of people in our networks that basically we're kind of looking forward to this as well.
But I also mentioned the social media aspect, because if you have some comments or you have some ideas about some great stories, please share them.
So again, give the people where that would be, where would they can be able to engage?
On Facebook and Instagram, Beach Cities Mag.
Beach Cities Mag on those. Okay, great. Yeah. I am super excited.
Me too.
I really am. And I think I can't wait to see who we actually, like, we have a list of people and we've reached out some people, but it's going to be exciting to see where we go with this. Exciting to see where the next chapter is.
No doubt. Thank you.
Thank you.
Look forward to it.
You too. Good to see you, my friend.
Absolutely.